A steady Saturday afternoon to all, virtually welcoming everyone in this Zoom room and to our viewers via Facebook Live. We are gathered for the launching of the 2020 Asia Pacific Futures Network virtual conference. The Philippine Futures Thinking Society is honored to host this year's APFN conference in November, and we are taking this opportunity to introduce a very exciting feat not only to our organization, but also for the Philippines. I am Selena Belia, your host for today. And to officially begin the program, may I call on the president of the Philippine Futures Thinking Society, who is also the co-chair of the APFN conference this November, Dr. Lizan E. Perante Calina, to give the welcome remarks and to introduce our keynote speakers.
Thank you very much, Celine. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Good afternoon, good evening, because we have international guests today. So welcome to this soft launch of APFN. This is the first virtual conference to be hosted by the Philippine Futures Thinking Society. As you all know, in June 2019, we launched the Philippine Futures Thinking Society. It's a professional organization. And with that launching, it was followed by a number of webinars on futures thinking, futures literacy, with the support of the global community. And I would like to share with you also that this is the first time I think that futures thinking, after so many years, that has been really organized, like the launching and the implementation of the certificate course on Futures Thinking at the Development Academy of the Philippines Graduate School of Public and Development Management. Secondly, the establishment of the Committee on SDGs, Innovation and Futures Thinking, chaired by Senator Pia Cayetano. And third, of course, the creation of the professional organization, which is the Philippine Futures Thinking Society. So a lot of activities have been conducted already on Futures Thinking Society. And this is really for the purpose of creating a mindset towards an anticipatory governance. And we link futures thinking and foresight to policy. So we have already connected that bridge, bridging policy and futures thinking. And also we are promoting Futures Thinking and Foresight to be part of public administration in the Philippines. So the home of Futures Thinking and Foresight is public administration and governance. So I'm very happy that you are here right now celebrating with us our successes in really igniting the Hiraya foresight. And as you all know, foresight and futures thinking is a Western concept, but we developed a Filipino concept, and that is Hiraya foresight, based on our culture, based on our aspirations, and based on our values. So at this point in time, I would like to introduce the pillars of futures thinking and public administration, who will give us very inspirational messages on the AFP, which is, with the theme, Regenerating Asia 2050. So this is really a great honor for all of us Filipinos to host the APFN virtual conference. So our first keynote speaker is Dr. Suhail Inayatullah, who is very supportive, of course, to our activities. And before I introduce Dr. Suhail, I'd like to acknowledge also my mentor, now, Dr. Anita Sykes-Kelleher. And later on, we will be joined by Dr. Sally Fox and Dr. Marcus Bussy. And our global advisor, senior fellow and global advisor also, Dr. Lily Domingo and Dr. Alex Brillantes. So to introduce Dr. Suhail Inayatullah, he is a political scientist, professor at Tamkang University, Taipei, Graduate Institute of Future Studies, and associate Melbourne Business School, the University of Melbourne. From 2001 to 2020, he was adjunct professor from the University of the Sunshine Coast, Australia. And from 2011 to 2014, he was adjunct professor at the Center for Policy, Counterterrorism, and Intelligence, Macquarie University in Sydney. In 1999, he was the UNESCO Chair in European Studies at the University of Trier, Germany. In 2016, Dr. Inayatullah was awarded the first UNESCO Chair in Future Studies. In 2010, he was awarded the Laurel Award for All-Time Best Futurist by the Shaping Tomorrow Foresight Network. In 2011, that was in March, he was awarded an honorary doctorate by University Sains Malaysia, Penang, and he received his doctorate from the University of Hawaii in 1990. Dr. Suhail Inayatullah has lived in Islamabad, Pakistan, Bloomington, Indiana, Flushing, New York, Geneva, Switzerland, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, Honolulu, Hawaii, and Brisbane and Moolalaba, Australia. And our next keynote speaker is, of course, our very own Dr. Alex Brillantes. He is professor at the University of Philippines at the National College of Public Administration, and also senior fellow at the DAP Graduate School of Public and Development Management. He also served as dean for 2 terms from 2002 to 2008 at UP Ensipal. And he is the president of the Asian Association for Public Administration with its secretariat in South Korea. He is also the former president of the Philippine Society for Public Administration, a fellow of the Pimentel Institute for Leadership and Governance, the Social Weather Stations, and the Center for Leadership Communication and Governance. Dr. Alex is a senior fellow of the Philippine Futures Thinking Society. So I would like first to welcome Dr. Suhail Inayatullah.
Thanks so much, Dean Lazan. Great to be here. 5 years ago, we were having a conference, and we started to talk about how to have a place where futurists who lived in Asia, were from Asia, were doing research in Asia, could have a space to meet. And thus was created with funding from Tamkang University, the Asia Pacific Futures Network. Koha Chen and Sung-Won Park were one of the founding parents of this association. As we began to have these meetings, the issue was, well, how is this different from other associations? I think very clearly the metaphor became the food court. The food court in Asia represents many traditions. There's junk food, there's healthy food, but in effect, it was pluralistic, moving from one way of doing futures, one way of eating, many ways of doing futures. It represented a place where you could have people working in government, in community, individual futures, and those also in business. So we started to talk about futures with a different flavor as opposed to futures that somehow epistemologically is different at APFN. Now, clearly the history is different. For example, there's a lived experience of colonization. There's a lived experience of spiritual traditions. There's a lived experience of capitalism that is state-run. So the history of futures in Asia Pacific differs from futures in other traditions. At the same time, so our model was, it's different, and the best way to capture that difference, we felt, was a pluralistic place like a food court. Over the last 5 years, I thought about, well, what are some of the key points that really hit me? And I think I remember Sung-Won Park after the global financial crisis saying that suddenly the notion that the West was leading in the image of the future was clearly bankrupt for everyone in the Asia Pacific region. It was clear people didn't know what happens after the GFC. And thus he was with the office of president in South Korea, and they set up a center for presidential visions. So what are some global visions of the future outside of Western concerns? Cho Fan Lee, who works with the Prime Minister's office in Singapore, talked about, well, this is the phase where we have three dead economists who have defined us, Ricardo, Keynes, and Schumpeter, comparative advantage, spent, and disruption. What's next? Who's the next core economist? Is this circular economies? Is this, what's our next phase in terms of the world economy? Suzanne Roth from ADB in Manila, she keeps on reminding us there's still time if we take the time. There's still a possibility for Asia Pacific to lead in terms of sustainability. My colleague Peter Black at Biosecurity Australia, he talked about 4 years ago the rise of pandemics. And we have to have a new economic model where we have buffer zones between cities and the wildlife, where we rethink our relationship with wet markets. He says those are critical points we need to do, and the Asia Pacific Futures Network can highlight that. Finally, my colleague Anita Hazenberg with the Center for Futures and Strategy in Singapore, she said clearly at our last meeting in Bangkok, futures innovation was a nice thing to have. And now, as I quoted more and more, it's a must-have. It's gone from a luxury to a core necessity. Futures literacy, futures thinking. My role at UNESCO with Real Miller has been, how do we make futures literacy a global movement, a global capability, a global skill set? So it starts 5 years ago as pluralism, and there was some key points that I've noticed that have been foundational in my thinking about futures. As we go towards 2040, 2050, what are some of the key points there? In our own book, Asia 2038, there were some 5 core points. One is to see climate change, the Asian response, as a way to create a constellation of institutions of foresight. Climate change becomes the vehicle we must act, otherwise cities will be underwater. Second is to start to shift what's been called no meeting in Asia normally can start without the minister speaking. It's been content heavy. It's been about prestige, saying, no, this is not about prestige. This is about going from content, meaning we're filling students with stuff, to know we're creating facilitated knowledge. Having worked in Philippines many times, I can clearly say Philippines is the center for global workshops in terms of the democratization of knowledge, everyone working together to create a different way forward. The third point, when we did our research in Asia 2040, we looked at which country is leading the world in gender equity in corporations. It was Thailand. And so more and more we're seeing these shifts from traditional Confucianism, traditional religion, where it's always follow Confucius, follow the king, follow the father, follow the brother, follow the husband, to what would Asia look like where it was gender equity. And we know from the research, you're wealthier, you're more inclusive, and you're far more efficient. Fourth, we start to imagine how can we use spirituality in its many functions as a way to start to imagine well-being in Asia for 2050. So what would well-being look like? This is moving from a single bottom line, just measuring GDP, to a quadruple bottom line. People, planet, purpose, prosperity. And this has to be built into our indicators. We know Bhutan has done that. I'm working with the government of New Zealand on developing their 2050 and 2070 well-being vision and well-being strategies. Fifth, we're not technologically averse. It's very clear in terms of Asian spiritual traditions, technology and nature are not externals. They're to be brought in, part of who we are and who we can become. So AI and robotics can create new wealth to bring the informal sector into the economy. They're not externalities, they're internalities. How do we enhance efficiency, enhance inclusion through access to new technologies? And we're seeing experiment after experiment, whether you're using technology to find which crops are going to go dead, and a new field called anticipatory plants. Anticipatory plants. One, the plant argument is it reduces cancer if you have plants in your office. We know green buildings make us healthier, but anticipatory plants start to predict disease and start to predict things like mold and start to predict things like allergies. So imagine cities, not just clean, green, smart cities, but anticipatory cities using AI with nature to make us healthier and happier. So that moves us towards an Asia that can say yes. Colonization essentially has been, you're not good enough. You're below, we're ahead. The image of an Asia Pacific that can say, yes, yes, we are good enough. We have the resources, physical, mental, spiritual, to create a new vision of who we can become. So Asia can say, yes, it's a very profound transformation. So what does that lead to? It's green, it's partnership-based, it's prosperous. It moves towards regional associations and finally a confederation of Asia by 2050. We're part of a new group. Anita's part of that. Many of you are part of that. The UN SCAP project to create a new Asia by 2040. And our last meeting, what struck me dramatically was one group on pollution. They said, right now, it's about my air. So thus, I can pollute, but I don't worry about it, externality. And they came up with the idea, well, it's about our air. So it goes from the commons, we're all sharing the air in Asia. But we're missing enforceable, implementable legislation throughout Asia to ensure Asia is clean, green, healthy, and prosperous. So the signs are powerful, the signs are dramatic, the signs are hopeful. At the same time, as futurists, we're not stupid. We understand the tension between idealism and geopolitics, between gender equity and patriarchy, between prosperity and wealth for the few. So in our Asia 2030, we imagined multiple scenarios. Scenario one was snakes and ladders. When I was working in Malaysia 30 years ago, snakes and ladders always came up. There's this great rise in Asia the last 50 years, but we can easily see without anticipatory governance, transparent governance, the great fall. Individual leaders put them and their tribe before others. So snakes and ladders creates the fall of Asia. Scenario two was fractured Asia. We know the hotspots in 2020. Kashmir, China, India, Taiwan, Hong Kong, the Koreas, South China Sea. We're not oblivious to geopolitical tensions. So by 2040, we could see a dramatic fractured Asia where everything is in ruins. At the same time, I'm the outlier in my imagination. So I, for example, see far more likely that by 2050, a person like the Dalai Lama is a leader of the Chinese Confederation. When we study history, it's not just figuring out the future from weak signals, it's understanding grand patterns. So I always watch for pendulums. Countries that go one way so far, they shift back. So it would not be strange for me to imagine Asia, where the Dalai Lama is leading, and we have a movement of people, ideas, and capital. So I think if you start to look at this, what we're trying to do in terms of futures, is create a forest of foresight in Asia. That would be my metaphor, a forest of foresight. In that forest, we have many tools, emerging issues, macro history, scenarios, and you can be who you want in that forest. As a futurist, you can be the tree. You can be a bamboo tree. You can be an angel. You can be the river. You can be a farmer. You can be an advisor or political leader. So the notion is you can be who you want to be in this forest of foresight that basically is essentially Futuristicity 2040. So I'd like to conclude on someone I've enjoyed working with, And my last meeting was in Singapore with Wee Shan Lam, and I've used his quote before. He was saying, as someone who advises different leaders in Singapore, that before it used to be believing was seeing. So the Asia method was you go around the world, learn from Oxford, Harvard, Sorbonne. You send people everywhere there. You collect the data as the rise of Japan during the Meiji Restoration. You send your ambassadors, you collect the data, and then you make the shift. Believing was seeing. That works until you're number one. Once you're number one, believing and seeing is nonsense because now data from the past cannot help you create the future. So Wee Shan Lam says, then you have to go towards seeing is believing. You create the future with data from the future. The vision leads. So our role is not just geopolitical scenarios. Our role is not just the politics of futures or epistemology in futures. Our role is not just the food court for today. Our role is trying to imagine Asia in 2050, Asia in 2100, a different region, and using that vision to lead where we can go. So seeing is believing, to believing is seeing. This is the type of world we want to start to create using vision and learning from the future. And so Asia Pacific Futures Network is we're all learning together, learning from each other, sharing stories with what works, what does not work, and moving step by step forward towards a new future. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sohail, for that. Indeed, you create the future with data from the future. So next, we will have our second keynote speaker, Dr. Alex Brillantes.
Thank you very much, Celine. After listening to the brilliant presentation of Dr. Sohail, I certainly will not pretend to give a keynote, but rather try to locate this within the context of our study in public administration and express our own messages of solidarity from the Philippine public administration community and also from the Asian Association for Public Administration, of which I have been part of. But even as I begin, let me just congratulate you again, Dr. Lisan, Dr. Sherman, Dr. Reggie, and the officers of this very important movement, guided by Professor Sohail, on launching this very important movement, I must say. The natural home, as pointed out by Dr. Lisan earlier, of quote-unquote futures thinking would be in public administration, but certainly it does not end there. Because when we began to go into this, and I myself, I'm a student of this discipline, I must say, you know what? Listening to the different presentations, quote unquote, the natural home might have been in policy analysis, which is a subfield of public administration. But after listening to the lectures of Sohail and watching your different lectures online, it should go beyond that. But we start somewhere. So we start with public administration, and the subfield will be policy analysis, and then move on from there. At one point in public administration, we have the classic fields: organization management, fiscal management, personnel management, local government. I know that there are many of you here who are students of public administration. We all know that, including policy analysis. But at one point, I guess because of, and I'm not putting the blame on anybody, but I guess because of this faddishism, if you may, naging uso po, it became some kind of a fad. We added several other fields in public ad, many of which prospered, but some might have fallen by the wayside. No, of course, we've had public enterprise management, strong field, environmental studies, spatial information management, and others. But the classic fields have remained: O&M, fiscal, personnel, and program administration and policy analysis. Perhaps we should start there. Then eventually, perhaps, futures thinking shall become a subfield after we have proven our worth, for lack of a better word, in the field by itself. And I think we should. The mere fact that we are about to launch this very important conference is showing that we're moving very, very quickly along that line. But the challenge should be how to sustain it And of course, equally important, how to create some good, solid, rigorous research that would really merit its field as not only as a subfield of public administration, but eventually, as in other countries, it's actually a separate social science field. And I think that's where we should be moving at, considering the many challenges that were mentioned by Professor Suhail. So I think it's very important, therefore, that even as we talk about this, we look at the past, if you may, but as Suhail mentioned, let's look more at the future. But I really think we should look at the past and what we have done. And futures thinking, to a certain extent, has been done in the Philippines with all of us. Last time he was also our speaker, Dr. Gil Santos, and a number of other futurists who were based at the Asian Institute of Management. It's there, and the challenge is how to sustain, how to partner with them. And I think that's what you have been doing through the leadership of Dr. Lizan. But as I mentioned, even as a field, as a side remark, I was a student at the University of Hawaii in 1980. It's a long, long time ago. And Professor Suhail himself was there. And one of your advisors, Jim Dator, was actually talking already about futuristics then. So that's so many years ago. Question, how has it moved in the Philippines? And to a certain extent, in Philippine public administration, it has not moved as fast as we thought it should. Maybe its time has not yet come, but maybe, paradoxically, its time has finally come, and we must really congratulate you guys. Your mission now is how to push it forward, how to develop this discipline of futures thinking among our people. And we're very fortunate that we have some policymakers who have, as a matter of fact, pushed this because they've seen the importance of futures thinking. We have no less than Senator Pia Cayetano, together, of course, with our colleagues in public administration, Noel de Guia, who have really pointed this out. And to a certain extent, it's now being put in legislation, and Suhail mentioned that very important part. And even in the Ministry of Education, we're doing this with no less than Professor Briones, the Minister of our Secretary of Education, who has talked about the importance of futures thinking unit in the Department of Education. But Senator Pia is thinking about the futures thinking unit across the bureaucracy. And that is what we need today. Instead of always looking from the past, as Professor Suhail very, very wisely pointed out, maybe this futures thinking unit should generate data in the future. And I think you are so right, my dear friend. So I think we as academics in public administration should be inspired, but really equally challenged. That one, hindi lang po ito uso. This is not fadishness. It's really a serious work if we are really to think about the next generation. That's what equity is all about. And I think it's very important. And the challenges that you mentioned, Professor Suhail, climate change, which country will lead in the world, the whole security issue is very, very important. So as I end my remarks, we're talking about futures thinking located in the home of public administration, as pointed out by Dr. Lizan, but equally important, even as we look to the past, let's look more to the future. And I think this upcoming conference that we're launching today is very, very important because this is an opportunity for us, for you guys, and I must commend you guys, you are the young, future, brilliant academics in public administration. It's really you guys who will help in framing, in shaping the discourse, not of only public administration, but of futures thinking in particular, and it will become mainstream in public administration. And that's your mission, coming up with efforts to shape the discourse, and that's actually what you're doing right now. Coming up with very important, solid researches, coming up with very important international conferences such as the one, to really make sure that it becomes mainstream. It becomes very natural in the discourse of public administration and even policy analysis in particular. So as you launch now the conference, Asia Pacific, for us in the Philippines, I think there are two particular challenges, and I'll end with this. We've mentioned this a number of times, globalization. Even as we think global, and that's what we're doing, let's not forget where we came from. What do this mean as far as the rural areas in the Philippines are concerned? The so-called those have been left behind. Here we are, at one point we'll be talking about the digital revolution, the fourth industrial revolution, etc. But you know what, paradoxically, even as we're moving forward, there are those who are being left behind. At one point, the digital revolution, bridging the digital divide, at one point, paradoxically, it's actually widening it. It's actually widening it. question, what do we do about it? The whole question of for whom is this? So thinking global, acting local, you've heard that before, but it's very important that we don't forget the local aspect of globalization, hence hence the Asian aspect, ASEAN, especially us in the ASEAN. And the other part, and this is for us in the ASEAN, let's not forget that even as we cooperate, I was part of a group in the ASEAN at one point, I was much, much younger. We talk about Gotong Royong. We talk about Mushawara. We are friends. Whenever we in the ASEAN, our leaders take pictures, their hands are clasped all together. We are friends, etc., etc. But beneath that, and we all know, especially for in the Philippines, is some element of competition. Hence, we talk about the importance of competition. Let's cooperate with them. But I think there's some element of quote unquote positive competition. And that's where I think we should really work with them and really within the context of continuous optimism, as Professor Sohail mentioned, compete with them. But it's okay to compete, but that should push us. We should not be content of where we are. We have this very important upcoming conference, but equally important, come up with solid research that would really be able to match pound for pound researches in other parts of the world. And I think this upcoming conference is really an opportunity for you guys, we in the Philippines, to really show that, hey, we can really compete as far as this is concerned. But at the end of the day, we continue to be part of the global community. So with that, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity. It's always so good to see you, Professor Sohail and Dr. Lisan. Congratulations, and congratulations to the board. And I'm so inspired by you guys, very young, bright academics. Not only that, pra-academics, practitioners and academics. That's what we always use in public administration. And I look forward to working with you guys, including my very good friend, Dr. Reggie, Dr. Lily Domingo, and of course, I'm happy always to see our International Board of Advisors working together towards, pardon the hackneyed term, a common desired preferred future. So with that, I'd like to thank you. Maraming salamat po. Mabuhay po kayong lahat. And let's move on towards the future that we all collectively design. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat, Dr. Alex. Thank you for emphasizing that this is a serious work in order to shape the future generation. Thank you for gracing us today. At this point, we are all excited, of course, to unravel the Asia Pacific Futures Network virtual conference. So without further ado, for the highlight of today's event, may I call on the chair of the APFN virtual conference, Professor Sherman Cruz.
Thank you very much, Sinj. That was a pretty quite intense provocation. If you have Suhail Inayatullah and Dr. Alex Brillantes, opening up a conference, having them as keynotes, it's always provocative, insightful, and it makes, the environment pretty, adventurous. That was a good challenge, and it gave us a sense of what this year's Asia Pacific Futures Network looks like and could feel like by November. And then, of course, I would like to embark from, of course, the insights of Dr. Brillantes and Suhail Inayatullah, and emphasizing the importance and perhaps contextualizing, the need for us to study anticipation and foresight from a practitioner's point of view. And as a practitioner of foresight, the task has always been about, as far as the Asia Pacific Futures Network is concerned, asking the big and the right questions, the questions that leads to insights, and that the insights that leads to action, and action that leads to transformation, and eventually movement that changes people's and communities' mindset. At the APFN, we've been asking a lot of questions about many things. And of course, this reminds me of the insight that Dr. Son Woon Park, who's a South Korean futurist working for the South Korean government, when he reflected on, if you try to imagine the futures of foresight, or what could futures thinking mean for Asia, he had this metaphor that basically encapsulates the conversation we've been having in the last 5 years. He said, a tangerine turns into a hard one when it crosses the water. When a tangerine tree from the south is planted in the north, it produces a different fruit. So futures and foresight in Asia, as emphasized, noted by Sohail, accentuates the idea of diversity and heterogeneity in futures thinking and practice. Of course, there were basic questions like, for example, how can it be localized? How can we localize futures and foresight in native languages, ways of knowing and experiences? Can Asian futures, if such a thing exists, address emerging challenges, raise new questions, and disrupt systems of knowledge and power as they currently exist? What capacities do we need to create or have, to enhance, futures thinking, knowledge and awareness and novelty and capacity and capability, both at the personal, institutional level in Asia? How can Asian philosophies, like, for example, Filipino philosophies and culture and experiences, shape alternative futures of future studies and practices in Asia? So the Asia-Pacific Futures Network, let me just share to you my deck, aims to explore this 4 or 5 things. Explore how Asian perspectives and tradition critically understand and inform future studies. Spread foresight, as emphasized by Dr. Alex Brillantes, wherein the idea is to house foresight and futures in the Philippines in the public administration policy sphere, which is, of course, the purpose of the APFN is to spread foresight, be from the government, but also beyond government, to include the civil society, the small businesses, and the corporate sectors, the non-governmental organizations, and the activists. And strengthen, of course, existing informal networks. I believe in the 21st century, given that everything works in a network system, the informal open source network or approach is perhaps more impactful than the formal network or an organization. And at the end of the day, the APFN has been building on this, to build a stronger link with other future focused networks and international organizations around the world. We've seen that in the last 4 years, and that can be further amplified by this year's Asia Pacific Futures Network Forum. And of course, explore emerging issues, that might likely challenge current trajectories of the Asia Pacific region, which of course, Sohail mentioned the key points, that we need to look into as far as the future of Asia is concerned. And of course, this were the organization that has hosted the Asia Pacific Futures Network over the years, as mentioned by Sohail, Tamkang University, the Science and Technology Policy Institute of South Korea, the Change Initiative, and the National Innovation Agency of Thailand in the last 4 years. And today, we're very honored and privileged to host, the next 2 years of the Asia Pacific Futures Network, and we will begin this year, of course, through a virtual conference hosted by the Philippine Futures Thinking Society. And of course, PhilFutures cannot do it alone. It must develop, it must coordinate and network, create a strong support system, to make this happen. Without this organization support, PhilFutures wouldn't be able to do and host the APFN this year, which is, of course, the Center for Engaged Foresight, the Development Academy of the Philippines, Graduate School of Public and Development Management, our partner always on futures thinking, the Philippine Society for Public Administration, UNESCO, the Millennium Project, which is a global futures research capacity institution, of course, UP-NCPAG, the Center for Leadership, Citizenship, and Democracy, and the Office of the Senate of the Philippines. These are our major, collaborators of the APFN. And of course, we do have global partners too, our implementing partners like the Asian Development Bank, the Association of Professional Futurists, the Future School, the East-West Center, and the School of International Futures in London. And then, of course, we also have our knowledge partners, like the Shaping Tomorrow Network. This is a foresight agency that specializes on artificial intelligence, foresight, and of course, metafuture.org. This is the organization of Swahili Neatula and the UNESCO National Commission of the Philippines, UNESCO, of course, Tamkang University is a knowledge partner, the Department of Education, the Commission on Higher Education, the Institute for Future Studies in Health in Iran, Change Initiative, Maya Futures, and Northwestern University in the north. And this is the event. The theme of the event is Regenerating Asia 2050, using futures literacy to transform governance, culture, and economy. So it is slated on November 19 to 21. It will be a whole day event for the next 3 days, but it will all be done virtually. So that is the conference. And of course, our partners from Dubai, from Iran, from Thailand, from Bangladesh, in the Asia Pacific region, and of course, our partners in China, in Malaysia, have been helping us promote this momentous virtual conference, which is also first, for the APFN, to spread the word and invite people far and wide across Asia and the world to participate in the Asia Pacific Futures Network Summit. So as mentioned by Swahil, the idea, really, the metaphor is to bring in different flavors of practice on futures and foresight in the Asia Pacific and the world. So what do we expect? We will have main plenaries. We will have 2 plenaries a day for the next 6 days. That's like around 6 plenaries. We will have multiple Zoom into the future sessions that will tackle different themes, policy themes and topics. And we will have workshops. If you want to learn more about tools and methodologies, there will be a number of workshops conducted by the inventors of these tools, like Swahili Neatula on CLA, participatory futures game by John Sweeney. The inventors themselves will facilitate the workshops of these futures tools and methods and games. There will be a lot of provocations, like just what we had right now, given by as Swahil provoked us and Dr. Alex Brillantes. There will be diverse, different spaces of provocations wherein futurists and non-futurists, imagine, the futures of foresight and practice in Asia and the world, the innovations that are coming in that are primarily driven, of course, by the post-pandemic and the year 2050 in the context of regeneration. There will be fireside chat on policy and governance that will be participated in by our partners and friends at the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, at the Office of the President under the MITE Malaysia, and then, of course, the Dubai government, which is, of course, is basically one of the most advanced in the world in terms of applying futures and foresight. Dubai will be a part of this. They just contacted us last week. They want to be a part of this. And there will be special sessions on the future is female, that will be led, of course, by the Development Academy of the Philippines in partnership with the Office of Senator Pia Cayetano, and Corporate Foresight by the Asian Institute of Management, led by Professor Jose de Colongon, and the National University of Singapore. And there will be open and network spaces wherein we will have the opportunity to connect and have a conversation and perhaps explore partnerships and collaborations with students, with non-futurists, futurists, future-focused institutions, and explore, the different ways, create opportunities for us to continue provoking and, developing capacities and capabilities in the Asia-Pacific and the world. So these are some of the topics and themes. This list is by no means are exhaustive, but just to give you an idea, we will have sessions and conference and plenaries on futures literacy, futures thinking, and strategic foresight, governance and policy foresight. There will be different phases, like the UPNCPAG and the PSPA will have sessions on Philippine policy foresight, and then the Asian Development Bank and the OECD will have sessions on global governance foresight and governance foresight. You have the School of International Futures hosting the next generation foresight, which is futures, youth futures. School of International Futures are really, at the forefront, of facilitating conversation of what could foresight be like in the next 50 years. And then we will have conversation on public health futures. And of course, the group from London, from Britain, led by Dr. Zia Sardar, who is considered as one of the 100 top British intellectuals of our time, will be there together with his team, the Center for Postnormal Studies and Future Studies, which have a strong organization and activities in Malaysia. We will have, as mentioned by Suhail, one of the drivers, in fact, of futures and foresight that makes it novel and unique is, of course, spirituality. We will have conversation on that, on what is the role of the spirituality, faith-based, context and concept in futures and foresight, wellness and mental health. We will have conversations on the futures of economy and prosperity, technology foresight. The best in the field of AI foresight will be there. We will have futures of arts and culture and design that will be facilitated by the UNESCO National Commission of the Philippines, together with poets and writers and songwriters, and designers from Belgium, to have a conversation about the future of arts, culture, and design in Asia. And then, of course, SDGs and innovation futures, corporate foresight, crisis management, and business continuity, which is, of course, will be facilitated by our friends from Canada. And of course, conspiratorial thinking, its role in influencing, impacting the way we do futures and foresight. That will be led by the East West Center Leadership Academy, and there will be a book launch, so it's a bazaar. It's like some sort of a supermarket. It's a festival of futures and foresight for the APFN, and that's it for me. I would like to call on my friends, Sheila Castillo to present the website, and later on after that, Dr. Reggie Ogudan, to help us localize further the APFN and how can we participate in this very important Futures and Foresight Global event this November. Thank you very much, Celine.
Thank you very much, Prof. Sherman, for introducing the APFN. Now, Ms. Sheila, I guess
Okay.
you can now
Let me share.
walk us through the virtual website.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Sherman, for informing us about all the details about the about the conference. It's gonna be great. It's quite exciting, the lineup. And so I'm presenting to you the website of APFN 2020. We call it apfn-hiraya.com. And as you all know, if you're familiar with the Philippine Futures Thinking Society, our vision is igniting the Filipino Hiraya through the power of foresight. And Hiraya means the fruit of one's aspirations, visions, and imaginings. So this is a way for us to really work towards our aspiration as a nation, as a region, through futures thinking. So this is the front page. Please visit us. You'll find a lot of information here. Thanks to our partner, Alex Fernani, for this video that he presented. There will be changes here. In terms of the global call for presenters, it's already closed now. We are going to deliberate on the applications for presenters, and we'll be announcing that soon. So as you all know, it's organized by the Philippine Futures Thinking Society in collaboration with the partners that Sherman has mentioned to you a while ago. And of course, this will not be possible without our implementing partners who were generous to support us in this conference. I think School of International Futures is not yet here. We'll put it there. And as well as the knowledge partners who are helping us in terms of really putting this together and inviting people to have a really what you call this diverse cohort of speakers and participants this conference. So, let's go to the APFN. This is the concept note of the conference. You will find most of these have been discussed by Sherman a while ago. And if you would like to write about it at the conference, just email us and we will give you more information about the workshop. As I mentioned, as Sherman has mentioned, this is our team. Our advisor for the conference is Professor Suhaili Nayatula. And the PhilFutures team is the one that is organizing the entire conference. You are familiar with all of us. We've been here with you since June. And yeah, so this is a very, very, what do you call this? Vibrant, active team, no, delivering to you this workshop. If you have a message for us, you can email us at apfn@philfutures.com or go to the website and go to the contact page, and that will be directed to the same email. As for the program, the confirmations are still coming in. We still have to fill up the other parts like Zoom into the Futures and the workshops from the deliberated and accepted presenters. So that will be here in a week. So please feel free to visit us because we are updating the website as we continue to receive confirmations from our speakers, from our plenary chairs, and from our facilitators. So the speakers page will lead us to the pictures and profiles of our speakers as well as the plenary chairs. Some here chairs, some here to facilitate. It's an exciting group of futures practitioners and academicians and public administration practitioners, designers, business people, arts and culture people. This is not complete. As we go on, we will be accepting and we will be updating this as we receive confirmations, and it's gonna be exciting. You'll be surprised when this is complete. This makes you think that it's a conference that I couldn't miss. Because of the diversity of the topics and the speakers that you'll interact with in the entire. As mentioned, the call for conference is already closed. So let's go to the participants registration. So this is now a one-stop shop. We have closed the Google form that we have sent out before, so that when you open that link of the Google form, it will redirect you to this page. So we have the main conference, which is the 3-day conference. We have a special session on the future is female. Don't miss this because this is gonna be really exciting. I particularly am very excited about this one. And you don't have to be a woman to be interested in this, I tell you. So please join us. And also, of course, corporate foresight. Is it a force for good? Here you can now I know you had some issues in the payment before when we were only having the bank transfer, but now you can easily pay online. We have options on bank transfers and pay online. If your bank has a mobile app, you can also deposit from there. We made it really easy for you to take part of this event. And of course, as you have seen, the cost of the workshop is really inexpensive for you, considering what you will get from it. This is just to cover the cost of what do you call this? The digital platforms, the website, the social media engagement, and other expenses. This is also to allow some young people to participate in the workshop. So that's it for me. This is the website. Please visit us anytime. And of course, don't forget to visit the APFN network page on Facebook. And this is our email, which I told you about. And if you need a quick response, this is my WhatsApp number. I'll respond to you quickly if you have like an urgent matter to discuss. So we are here for you, and we would like to make this a really, what do you call this, a really exciting experience. Especially we are experiencing more than half of people who will be attending have no experience in futures thinking, in future studies, and in the field. So we welcome you to join us and invite others. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Sheila. Please, everyone, do visit our website. It's apfn/Hiraya. So right now, may I call on the chair of the Committee on Programs of the APFN Conference, Dr. Reginald Ugadan, to give us a glimpse of the local aspect of the APFN Conference.
Thank you very much, Celine. Once again, welcome to the launch. This year's Asia Pacific Futures Network Virtual Conference on Regenerating Asia 2050, using futures literacy to transform governance, culture, and economy, will open the discussion on democratizing and mainstreaming futures thinking in the country. The global pandemic opened a serious attention on futures thinking to offset the short thinking not only in the public, but also in the private sector. For public administration, of course, for those who are studying public administration, you see the relevance of futures thinking, specifically strategic foresight in the policy making. For public policy students and practitioners, you may see the global health condition a scenario that opened a policy window that is fertile ground to promote evidence-based and policy that looks beyond immediate constraints. I can still remember our colleagues from the Graduate School of Public Development and Management at the Development Academy of the Philippines through Dr. Lizan. My colleague also, Prof. Alex, and Ma'am Lily, Dr. Lily, proposed a contextualized strategic foresight applicable in the Philippine context in the Senate. It emphasized the role of frenetic leadership in the process, knowledge co-creation, and public value. We argue the importance to have a great sense of the environment and to respond to these conditions and changes intelligently through futures thinking approach. We accept the reality that most of tomorrow's opportunities and threats are unknown. This phenomenon requires skills, resources, institutions, and policies to cope with future opportunities and threats. The conference will enhance our knowledge, skills, and abilities in anticipating futures. Scholars, practitioners from various fields, this is a great opportunity for us to see each other, to discuss, to debate, or engage with each other, to see maybe what are the implications or the use of this futures literacy to transform our governance, our culture, and economy. So you may check the Phil Futures Thinking FB page and website on how to join the conference. We hope to see you all, and we hope that the discourse on futures thinking will continue even after this conference. And we hope that everyone, or maybe the whole country, may create or may co-design and co-create futures thinking in the country. Thank you very much, and hope to see you all in the conference.
Thank you very much, Dr. Reggie. I agree that based on what you said for highlighting the importance of this conference as a platform for discourse. Thank you very much, Dr. Reggie. So of course, this event, as being the first for the country, is inspired by our partners, senior fellows, and global advisory board members. So to speak, to give the congratulatory or solidarity message, may I call on first the president of Kalayaan College and the ever-supportive senior fellow of the Philippine Futures Thinking Society, Dr. Maria Oliva Z. Domingo.
Thank you very much, Celine. To all of us gathered here virtually today from different parts of the globe and in different time zones, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever is applicable. For the greater part of our lives, I think as long as I can remember, we have been advised, alerted, reminded, and even warned to take note of the turbulent changes, emerging issues, and megatrends occurring around us to avoid the shock of finding ourselves in a tomorrow we did not help shape. Today, we have many reasons to rejoice. First, from informal groups and networks, Filipino professional futurists, future scholars, and practitioners have banded together, and now we have a formally organized Philippine Futures Thinking Society, or PhilFutures. Even aspiring futurists are in fact excited to be part of PhilFutures. It provides a fertile ground for the exploration of and discourse on the probable, plausible, and preferred futures for the country. Its vision to ignite the Filipino Hiraya, or our dreams and aspirations, make us more hopeful that our journey towards our desired future will be more exciting. The Graduate School of Public and Development Management of the Development Academy of the Philippines is likewise blazing the trail by offering a certificate course in futures thinking and infusing foresight in its other course offerings. This initiative is sowing the seeds of futures thinking and anticipatory governance among high-level officials, employees, and many other interested parties. Furthermore, we have an avid champion in the Senate, Senator Pia Cayetano, who, as chair of the Committee on Sustainable Development Goals and Futures Thinking, who is ably assisted by the treasurer of PhilFutures, Noel Vigilla, is paving the way for the mainstreaming of futures thinking in government offices and agencies across the country. And today, PhilFutures is pushing the frontiers of futures thinking in the Philippines even further through the launching of this Asia Pacific Futures Network virtual conference. And the theme, Regenerating Asia, using futures literacy to transform governance, culture, and economy, promises a very exciting conference. This is indeed a future that has already been realized. Congratulations, PhilFutures. Congratulations, APFN. Congratulations, GSPDM. Congratulations to Futures Thinking. Mabuhay! Let's go forth and be part of creating a forest of foresight. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lily, for that. A forest for foresight. So thank you for being very supportive with all our initiatives. Well, another supportive Global Advisory Board member who has been with us since the launch of the Philippine Futures Thinking Society and now to the launch of the APFN conference. We are happy that she was able to join us today. May I call on Dr. Anita Sykes-Kelleher.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you again today. I constantly reflect on just how fast futures thinking and foresight is already spreading throughout the Philippines. The energy, the commitment, and as you say, the support of Senator Pia Cayetano, which obviously gives young people the hope that this is taken seriously, that it is something that they need to learn when they see such a senior person supporting it. So I would like to congratulate everyone involved in the development and launch of the APFN 2020 virtual conference. I know firsthand just how much work goes into designing, facilitating, booking everything you need to book and organizing a conference. So well done. I'm sure you'll be looking forward to a bit of a rest. I'm looking forward to seeing old friends and new at what I'm sure will be a great success for the organizers and an exciting learning experience for participants and speakers alike. I'm really looking forward to listening to the speakers. I can't wait to hear what's going on in different parts of the world and what their latest learning is. But never has there been a better time to learn how to anticipate plausible futures and engage our communities in co-creating stories of hope. And this virtual conference enables so many more people to learn both from the online communications perspective and the financial. You've made it affordable for students and people in developing countries. And many people I meet in Asia Pacific countries when I'm traveling around doing my workshops would not be able to afford the thousands of dollars that it costs to travel around to these international conferences. So this online forum enables so many more people to engage and to learn. And as Dr. Alex said, we have to consider the next step in the future, which is overcoming the digital divide. So we're making it accessible, we're making it affordable, then bridging the digital divide will be our next challenge. So congratulations, everybody. This is a huge first step, and I'm really looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing you all there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anita. We are also looking forward to seeing you online at the conference. For the next, we would like to hear from Mr. Jose W.B. Decolongon, an adjunct faculty at the Asian Institute of Management and our very own member at the Philippine Futures Thinking Society.
Thank you, Celine. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, it's an honor to be here and to be part of the launch of this historic event. The Asia Pacific Futures Network is known really for bringing together professional futurists, future-oriented think tanks, universities, institutions in the past years, and it has hosted by various countries and by well-respected institutions in the region. I think this year's conference is a significant milestone in the evolution and growth of the field in Asia. I think this year will also be a year of firsts. It's the first time that the Philippines will host it. It's normal. And also, it's normally conducted in a physical space. So this year's conference will probably be the first to be done in a virtual space for APFN. It is also the first time that it is being held in the midst of such a dramatic global shift forced upon us by the pandemic. And we need this now more than ever. So kudos to the Philippines Futures Thinking Society and the whole futures ecosystem for working very hard to make such a landmark conference possible. It gives a lot of personal pride as a fellow Filipino and a member of the Philippine Futures Thinking Society. So in behalf of the Asian Institute of Management, congratulations, and I look forward to new insights and provocations, foresight initiatives and programs, and most importantly, a new and strengthened relationships coming from this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decolongon, for that. And now our friends from Manila, from Malaysia, and from Pompeii, all the way from all parts of the world have sent their congratulatory messages. So allow me to play the video and please watch this.
Mabuhay. This is Peachy Diokino Valera, Futures Learning Advisor of Center for Engaged Foresight. So I'm inviting you all to Asia Pacific Futures Network's virtual conference this coming November 19 to 21, 2020. The title Regenerating Asia 2050 is very apt since we are finding our ways into creating new societies without actually discarding our history and culture. This merely calls for a renewal or revival of Asia by infusing our philosophies with new modes of thinking, one being futures thinking. Futures thinking and literacy is more than just understanding the changing system or utilizing the future for innovation. It's also enabling our present selves to empathize with our future selves. By being in that state, we are motivated to work towards a transformative future. And when we do it together, when we combine our collective foresight with collective compassion, I believe we can achieve that collective social transformation. So this regeneration theme could not be more timely. As we throw around new normal loosely, it makes us ask, well, what is a new normal? Who, what, or which agencies dictate what the new normal should be? This so-called new normal age is both present and future. And while a part of it still lies in the future space, we call on its proactive shaping. While our history, present reality, and insights about the future may be diverse, one thing remains, and it's that human condition of wanting things to be better. That's why evolution in thinking and being exists, and we aim for progress and we aim for peace. This pandemic accentuated the leftover ills of past decades and brought about the best and mostly the worst in us. And we envision a regenerated Asia 2050. What comes to mind is a generation's worth to work on our healing. A truly regenerated Asia means we have completely healed from this pandemic. We have worked towards a harmonious and regenerative relationship with nature. We have healed mentally, emotionally, physically, psychically, spiritually. We have eradicated or at least greatly reduced the hatred, bigotry, the division, and violence we have inflicted on each other. When we have healed, then that is where we get a sense of renewal, a sense or a state wherein we can truly regenerate. I leave you now with a question. What are our future plans for healing?
Hi, greetings and salutations from Malaysia. My name is Rushdie, and I am a foresight practitioner and an advocate for foresight and futures thinking, and I have been doing so for the past 15 years. In these challenging times, I hope that you are well and safe with the comfort and company of your loved ones. That is why, faced with these challenges, I am very glad that the Asia Pacific Futurist Network, or better known as APFN, an event that brings together interested stakeholders in futures and foresight, still continue to be held, though held virtually. Now, I have been a perennial participant with APFN since its inception, yet I still continue to gain insights and knowledge through exchanges and conversations that happen there. I believe, regardless of who you are, or what level of futures knowledge that you have, there is something for everybody there. You might meet new people, understand their futures work, as well as be inspired by the work of others, so that you may pursue your own agenda. I do hope that you will join us.
I'm Susan Roth and I'm from the Asian Development Bank. And today I speak to you from Pompeii. 17 years before the famous volcano eruption of the Vesuv volcano, the people of Pompeii experienced an earthquake, and they took this as an early warning sign. This is early foresight. If you want to learn more about foresight and future thinking, join us in the Asia Pacific Futures Network Conference in November 2020.
Wow, from all parts of the world, thank you very much for the overwhelming support. Ms. Peachy Valera, Dr. Susan Roth, and Mr. Rushdie Rahim Abdul. Indeed, we are very happy that you gave time and effort to produce those videos. So now, I would now like to give the floor to Ms. Sheila Castillo for remarks.
Hi, thank you, Celine. That was really, what do you say? I'm quite speechless about this launch that Celine almost single-handedly put together. Thank you, Celine. And I I have nothing more to say except for one thing, which all of you would find irresistible. Now, we're going to design the APFN conference in a way that you will be able to collaborate. We will hear your voice even in sessions that have like talks and you are not able to ask your question or give your feedback. There will be a global mural board, Miro board that we will be using, wherein you can go in and out of the sessions. You can visit any session that you want. You can put your feedback in the Miro board. You can post your questions there. And just your thoughts and meet people. There will be open spaces, there will be town halls where or a networking session where you will be able to like sit down virtually with people attending the workshops, the conference as a whole. And it will be a totally participatory and collaborative experience, even in the traditionally designed sessions in the plenaries. You can still post your feedback in the Miro board. So that is quite exciting. And if you register for the conference, you will have access to the Miro board, which has information on all of the sessions, all of the profiles of the speakers, plenary chairpersons. There will be the link specific to that session. And after that, you will see fellow participants posting their feedback and their questions there. So it's gonna be really a vibrant community in 3 days of the conference. Plus, you can still access the recordings of the conference after the 3 days. So do join us. You won't want to miss this. This is going to be really enlightening for you who have not, who don't have any previous, knowledge or experience about futures thinking. This will be awesome for you. If you are a practitioner or if you are beginning, you'll definitely get a lot of value from this conference. So join us, and we're excited to see you there. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us in this launch. And enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you very much, everyone. I hope all 100 attendees here today, I hope we can all see each other at the APFN conference this November. So before we leave, I hope everyone can stay and open their videos for a quick picture taking.